What's up, party people? And hello, my friends. It's your girl, Welcome to China, and welcome to the Welcome to China show. And baby, today, y'all, I don't even know where to start. I mean, this is my first installment ever of the Welcome to China show, and I'm so excited. I really doubt my mind and my thoughts and my advice and commentary. So this was very hard for me to even get here and start. But if you have made it here, then I am China. On this show, my goal is to welcome you to different things that I deal with on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a yearly basis, in my head, in my mind, and in lifestyle. So if you're in your 20s and you're a lady, or even a young man, and you just want to delve into things that we deal with that we don't really talk about, then welcome. You have been to the right place. Interesting enough, the reason why I wanted to start this episode off with feeling like I'm an imposter or I don't belong in this body or this life, because my boss, an old manager of mine per se, I worked politics, but I'll get into that later. So my boss's boss, so think of like your general manager of the company, but again, I worked politics. She hit me up and she said that it was a position in management to be a director, which is a management role, that she felt that I would excel in. And for me, I said excel in a management role. How? I'm not qualified enough. Are you speaking to the right person? Did you even like me when I worked with you? My boss was always super intimidating. So it was kind of always hard to really tell who she was fond of, who she wasn't. But for me, it really like freaked me out because I was like, wow, a management role that I would excel in. And I was already in a management role, but it was more like a supervisor. But I would be the manager of all of the managers. I would be over all of the supervisors in this political job. And if you don't know, in politics, it's political season. You have a lot of mayoral races going on, congressional campaigns, but I'll get into that later. So it's kind of a big deal. So for her to hit me up and to want me to do this and to ask for my resume, I was surprised. I didn't think that I was good enough. And it was almost like, are you messaging the right person, ma'am? And this was what brings me into why I want to talk about the topic of today, which is imposter syndrome. So for those who do not know, imposter syndrome is how it sounds. Imposter syndrome, also known as imposter phenomenon, impostorism, fraud syndrome, or imposter experience, is a psychological pattern in which an individual doubts their skills, talents, accomplishments, and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. As I said, like almost as I don't fit into this job, like me being in this role, how? Despite external evidence of their competence, those experiencing this phenomenon remain convinced that they are frauds and they do not deserve all that they have achieved. So this is going to bring me into my life and my achievements. I've had a lot, but all of which I felt like, am I deserving of this? Is this just blessings? Or some people would say pure luck. I'm a Christian, so I believe in the divine, things that, you manifest and they happen. But a lot of the times, the last couple years of my life, since I got out of school and I was in such a slump out of college, my life has been going great and I just feel like almost I'm not in the right body. So when I came across imposter syndrome, I had to learn more about it. Now, obviously, for some or who's watching or who's seeing or listening, I'm Black. I'm a Black female. And studies show that women in particular who are very successful feel that they are in the wrong body or they're in the wrong shoes or being in the wrong place or undeserving of your accomplishments because you're special or other people aren't as far along as you in life almost. Also, being of color, being Black. All these things that we have in place for us not to be successful as African Americans, as Black people, as Negroes, obviously, when you are a successful Black person, it can make you feel like, do I belong here? Am I in the right shoes? Am I in the right body? Now, I don't want you to get this confused that I'm not confident. I'm very confident. I'm still going to do my job to the fullest. I've never let the imposter syndrome get in the way of what I was doing, but I just had to hit the nail on the head and put a name to the face to understand what I was going through. So let's get into more of it. Why do I feel this way? So a little bit about me is I went to school for acting. I am an actor. I have a bachelor's degree in acting. For a lot of people, they may feel like that's a bachelor's degree in what the hell, and it can be. But that's what I decided to do. That is my passion. I'm an artist. I speak, I talk, and that's why I excelled in politics. But I started my journey working on the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2016. So this is my sophomore year of college and I was a volunteer. But this was the first time that I've ever really gotten into politics before. And getting into politics was something that I never thought that I would be into, but I just really liked Bernie Sanders. And I remember we have this thing called tabling, where you see people who have flyers outside of grocery stores or on campus, and they want to encourage you to join a club or to be a part of a movement. So they had a table, and a woman was tabling. And I spoke to her, and she told me about Bernie Sanders, and she told me to come out and volunteer. Now, keep in mind, I had more free time during that time as an acting student. I was always very, very busy, but I made it my point to want to get involved and to do something. Now, later, becoming a supervisor in politics and being a field organizer and working in the political field, they were recruiting me because they liked my energy and my passion. But I didn't know that then. But it benefited me in the long run. So long story short, I volunteered for a couple of months. I put on a bunch of different events, basically, and I was great. They had people coming in and out from different places to promote Bernie Sanders. Now, this was in 2016. So this is like when he was running against Hillary Clinton. So Bernie was still not necessarily a front runner, but he started to become very popular for the young liberals. So with that being said, I was intrigued with his message and I went along with it. But again, I got busy, and a couple years later, the old organizer reached out to me and he said, I have a position and I need some help, and it's working on a congressional campaign. And I said, a congressional campaign? What is that? It's obviously to help somebody, go into Congress, dumbass. But for me, I was like, interesting, but I've never done this before. But he's like, you're an actor. You can talk to people. You can persuade. And I hate to break it to you guys, politics is a lot of persuading. You don't necessarily have to have a political science major to do this. I'm sorry, poli-sci people, but I've made a lot of money in a short period of time working politics. And trust me, I didn't know a lot about what I was talking about. So I worked that job. And again, I'm like, how am I working this job on spring break and making a good amount of money? How is this happening? I'm an actor. I'm not equipped to do this. So I chalked it up as blessings or luck. And I went along with it, but it just never felt per se right. Because I'm like, how did I get into a field that I didn't even start in? So then, that same boss that I had, I asked him to be a reference for me when I wanted to become a substitute teacher. Now, this is after I graduated. I'll do another episode about my mental disdain and why I left Chicago and moved. But anyway, I moved back home to Michigan. That's where I'm from. And I asked this supervisor, this boss from the congressional campaign, from the Bernie campaign, the one who hooked me up, I asked him to be my reference, and he told me that he had a job for me in New Hampshire. Him having a job for me in New Hampshire, I was like, what? He said, well, Bernie is running in New Hampshire, obviously, for president, but it's a split state, so that means it goes red and blue. So that means it can go either way. It can go Republican or Democrat, but it's a lot of money. It's good money. And it's in New Hampshire, and you'll be like 50 minutes from Boston. Now, I've never heard of New Hampshire before in my life, and that's where I currently live now. But again, let's not jump the gun. So I upped and moved to New Hampshire, and I took this job. And I absolutely could not believe that I was offered a high-paying job over $40,000 out of college, and I just wanted to be a substitute teacher. And he offered this to me, and I couldn't believe it. And I took the job, and I started to work here, and I excelled. I went on to work for Bernie for months. I went on to work for Joe Biden, and then I ended up here. And all during this time, I couldn't believe, how did I get here? How did this happen? How do these accomplishments come and fall in my lap and I don't feel like I deserve them? But it's imposter syndrome. I just didn't understand why I felt this way. But it's the idea of everyone's struggling in their minds, okay? But we don't talk about it. It's the idea that we idolize people who are in these positions and think that we can't really get there. And I think that social media, I think that how everything is in our faces of luxury, they're not going to show you any struggle. Obviously, we don't talk to our peers about us struggling. But everything on the outside looks perfect when I was working these jobs. But I was working extremely hard. I was overworked. I remember my coworker and we had to knock on your door and persuade. This is before C-19. Knock on your doors and persuade you to vote for this candidate. And it was just so hard on us to talk about race, to be Black in New Hampshire, to deal with all these things. But meanwhile, I'm standing here talking, introducing Bernie Sanders. I've had so many opportunities. I've met Bernie Sanders before. I've introduced him twice. I've done field pitches before, where it's a speech before a monologue per se, before the candidate comes up. I've put on grand events. I've met great people. I've met Ben and Jerry. I've met Susan Sarandon. I've met cool people working politics and being an actor. But in my mind, I'm like, how did I get here? How did I deserve this? And a lot of the time, it's really hard to put myself in other people's shoes to think that people understand. And what I've been learning about imposter syndrome is it stems a lot of the time in some circumstances, which made me reflect from childhood and idolizing people who you look up to. And I've always idolized my mother. I've always idolized my grandmother, my grandfather, people who I look up to in my life. But I've always seen them as like, not as humans, as these deities or these people who I adore, that I felt that I could never be like. But I ended up being like them in a great way and excelling. I've graduated college. I've moved. I'm in a great relationship. I'm taken care of. I have a lot of positive things going on in my life. But again, I always have been struggling with feeling like I do not deserve it. But I do. It's not like I don't work hard. I excelled so quickly being a field organizer, which is an entry-level job, working politics, to being a regional director, and then to being a field director, an interim field director. I've worked on multiple campaigns, and this has been the only way for me to be able to make money while being an actor and being a influencer and, having a YouTube. And obviously my boyfriend, I'm literally a stay-at-home girlfriend at this point now, because I stopped working politics because it was so stressful. But I decided to get back into it. And when my boss, to go full circle, my boss's boss, my big boss, she reached out to me and said that she felt that I would be, a good fit. It almost felt like, wow, I really do this. Now, this is something that I have just been getting into. So I'm learning how to overcome, but it's really about holding space and knowing that you deserve to be there. And when I look at all the accolades that I have, I've worked hard for them. But again, when you're ahead of your peers, when you're excelling at a higher and faster rate than the people around you, sometimes it feels like, do I belong here? And you always want to compare yourself to others. But a lot of the time I found myself comparing myself down and comparing myself to people who weren't doing anything, or people who were my peers or were my friends who weren't as successful or doing as much as me. I felt like I needed to be relaxing or not doing things. But at this time and place, I realized that now the world is really of an oyster for me. I'm now able to deal with high stress situations and get into management and not have to work retail anymore, and not have to work at Starbucks and not have to work at Guess and all these places that I worked, and being a struggling actor because I was actually good at what I did, and acting really helped me with that. So if you're struggling, and if you're listening, if you feel like you're accomplished and you don't know how you got here, it's all in divine order, and you are supposed to be here. Michelle Obama did a beautiful TED Talk interview about this. And I was watching it, and she was just saying, you do deserve to be here. I mean, Michelle Obama was the president's wife. She served on executive board. She's worked with the mayor. She's worked in all types of facets. Extremely successful. She has her own nonprofit. But still, it's like, how did I get here? This Black girl from Chicago. And it's still the same thing for me. How did I get here? How am I living this life that's fulfilling me, but I'm still not feeling fulfilled within myself? And how am I living this life that's fulfilling me, but I'm not fulfilling myself because I'm not putting forth the effort to feel like I belong here? I work hard and I do all these things and I made all this money, but I have not taken the time to be like, wow, you did this. You deserve to be here. Being an actor and going through acting school was almost traumatizing for me and a lot of my peers, because you just learn to work. You have that workhorse mentality, highly competitive. You do not stop working. And they told us you have more downtime after school, but I never had any downtime. I have really bad anxiety. I suffer from GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, the overthinking, the professionalism, the perfectionism. I'm always on point. That's me. And I remember my very first therapist that I had, she made me name out all of the positive things that my anxiety does for me in my life. And it makes me be on point. It makes me, not forgetful. It makes me, be a high achiever. But all of these things come with doubt and second guessing. And, our mental health it's hard. Being mentally prepared to deal with different things in life is draining. And especially like being 25 and, having a good life, having a good spouse, living in New Hampshire, a place that I never thought that I would live in. It's almost like a dream when I wake up and I'm here. A lot of those things is just not a blueprint for it. And when you're sometimes some of the most successful or one of the most successful in your family, or, the pressure is on you, it's still like, whoa, how did I get here? And I'm sure it's going to be so shocking and surprising as we open up this conversation and we talk about this more. I'm sure it's going to be, surprising to my peers, but I just sometimes don't feel like my accomplishments are always deserved. Or how did I get here? But I know they are, and you work hard, and trust me, those interview processes are not hard. But even like the job I've been interviewing for now, and it's been a process, it's a $40 an hour job. And in my mind, I'm like, how would I ever be qualified to have a $40 an hour job? How? Me as Chynna Potts. Because I haven't been surrounding myself with people who are working hard or people who are like-minded. The downfall of being an actor is that we're all struggling, we're all working, we're all trying to strive and do our own things. But I've had to try to make more friends, surround myself with people who are doing things with their lives in order for me to feel like, shoot, sometimes that you belong here, and it's hard. So that's something that I'm going to work on more, and that I have been trying to work on is, having that meaning of deservingness, or feeling like I deserve to be here, or that I am here and I'm owning it. So that's the imposter syndrome. I'm interested to see if others feel like, they deal with this, or if this is like a struggle of yours, or if this is something that you've come across, but you couldn't put your finger on it or put a face to the name. And I'm eager to hear how do you get through it. And it's a lot of information online and YouTube and different content to watch about this. But I feel like a lot of people deal with this, and we're not having the open conversations when we're in the workplace or with our peers about our doubts and our second guesses, or, how did we get here to feel this way? And I'm still honing in on, feeling deserving of my accomplishments and where I am in life. So it's always going to be an uphill battle. But awareness is key, right? And that's all that we can do. I know my first installment hasn't been the longest. I hope it's still a little bit interesting. We'll still heat it up and talk about more things, but I wanted to start with something that served me, and I'm all about me. So I encourage everybody to be all about you and all about yourself as we go into this upcoming week, and not to be imposters, but to really live in our truth. And I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to start this visual show podcast. And I'm excited to be able to talk about really meaningful things now here on my platforms. So I appreciate everyone being here. If you are new, make sure that you are looking at all of my different platforms at WelcometoChynna on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all of those fun things. And just know that you are really you, and you deserve to be in the body and in the space that you hold. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.